Oh, yeah.
Hey, everybody. My name is Andrew Davis, and you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture. And yes, I am scandalous like an Ashley. And I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by Pocket Jack Comics with their debut, Guinevere and the Divinity Factory, which is in stores right now in April. And it is sort of in previews, but it's also in comic shops. And there might be more issues that are coming. So go bug your comic shop. And furthermore, you can actually go on to my friend Preston Poulter's Whatnot channel, which is Pocket Jack Comics, and you can get a $15 credit if you sign up and use the coupon Andrew, as well as an additional 15% off all of his sexy comic artwork. So definitely go check that out. And I do not think you will be disappointed. So go support the people who actually make this show possible and partially make this show possible as well. But enough about that, because I have with me comic creator Shaun Barbour from Inkstead. And obviously he's got a book out and we're going to be talking about his book. But welcome back to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, dude. I'm excited. Like, you're one of the first podcasts I've been doing through my campaign. So of course I'm excited.
No, I'm excited. I'm always excited to interview people. I mean, I enjoy talking to you. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy obviously books. I enjoy comics. I enjoy a lot of stuff. And I've known you for a while. What is it, like 4 years?
Oh yeah, for sure, at least.
So yeah. So this is no. I'm excited, and I think I got your name right. So that's always a good start. So, but enough about that, because you got a lot going on with your book. I drive for Cerber.
Yep.
C Uber Cerber, and there's a lot of stuff going on with it. Issue 2 is out, and I think that this is a piece of the podcast, the story of it. I'm not exactly sure the whole lore of this project, but I do know that it goes beyond just a comic. But what is the basic premise of the book for those hearing about it? Because there's a lot of stuff with this project and everything going on with it.
I Drive for Cerber is like Uber for the paranormal, and this is the first issue right here, and this is the main character, Jim. He's down and out on his luck, and he applies for a new job. And while he's scrolling through his phone, he lands an opportunity to be a driver for this rideshare transportation service called Cerber, and he finds out, like, on the first ride that is transporting paranormal creatures, cryptids, creepypasta characters, that kind of stuff. And also on one of his first rides, he actually picks up the literal ghost of his murdered sister. So he's not only trying to survive the night, but he's also trying to solve the mystery of his sister's murder. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, he's snarky, he's got a lot of attitude, and this story actually originated as a creepypasta on Reddit, and it grew popularity there. It also has an audio narrative on YouTube by a guy named Nature's Temper, and they actually pre-existed myself, and I got excited about the story and wanted to do it in a comic book format. Was able to do a little bit of research, get in contact, and I've got the rights to be able to turn it into a comic book. So here we are.
Let's get into it. Let's get into this, in which I want to get into the book a little bit. So obviously we have a character where, because my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's part 1 and part 2, and that completes this part of the story. Obviously, I think with the Reddit stuff and some of the narration and the podcast stuff of this, there's other components of it that supersede this and continue from this point of the story where the comic touches, and there's stuff that came before it. Again, I'm not the expert, so correct me if I'm wrong at any point. But what is this like to kind of figure out how to pick this component of the story and get everybody on board? Because there's a lot of people who are familiar with it, but there's also a bunch of people saying, "What the hell is this?" Like,
in the current, I think the trend that's out there is people are into paranormal stuff, and they're into like true crime, murder mysteries and stuff. So this part of, let's say, Jim's story, I found it kind of intriguing, and I thought it would fit well with interest in people, what they're into, and because of the way that it is told, it allows for more characters to be introduced, and it's got that individuality to where if somebody only wanted to look at one issue, they could look at the one issue. If they want to pick up the 2-issue story arc, they can do that, and it lends itself out to spider out into other rides. And so it has a lot of opportunity for growth, and this felt like a good jumping point for it.
Yeah, and to even go further into that as well, where what is this like? Because obviously you are playing in a world where you do get creative licensing when you take something and you transform it into another medium.
Mhm.
But you also have to stay within this whole Reddit and its original creation to some degree, where you can't kill off Jim if Jim doesn't die.
Right.
And so what is that like? Because obviously I don't know if Jim's skin color was ever mentioned in the Reddit or in the narration, but that's a creative interpretation. Or what color a monster might be, or did his sister's ghost enter from the right side or the left side of his
Right.
car ride? All of this, and it could very well be that there's a reason why a character enters from the right side and not the left side. But what is that like? Because this is where this gets really interesting, right? Because that could also change the way something is interpreted or viewed, or what is going on, or even what Jim is feeling throughout this whole process of what is
Yeah.
trying to uncover. Because how you present it and even the artistic choices can sway a reader.
Sure. One of the cool things is that engaging with the original writer of the Reddit story, it's cool to add like a new dimension. If you were to listen to, let's say, the audio done by Nature's Temper, who's our narrator for the audio version of the book, you wouldn't know, and it's not stated what Jim's skin color is. So it lent itself in the original story for people to kind of draw their own conclusions, and that when we get into Jim being a person of color and whatnot, this is actually the way he was imagined by the original writer. So it was cool to be able to dive into that, because I didn't know that going into it, but I was more than happy to oblige. And it's a cool opportunity to be able to tell a story that incorporates other people being than their truest selves. And even on a controversial side, there's a character in issue number 2, the demon Azazel, that is a drag queen. So it's nice to be able to promote people being their truest forms of themselves and represent maybe people that have been underrepresented or maybe represented in a tainted light. So I am honored to do it, and I think it's super fun for me, and being able to balance out expectation versus intention is just a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, because I think it's always interesting, at least the way I think and the way I view things, is that when something goes from being a movie to becoming novelized, or becoming I don't know if that's the correct term, but going from a movie to becoming a novel
Mm-hmm.
or book or a horror, whatever you want to call it, or even a from a movie to a television show, all of a sudden, or vice versa, when something goes from being a book to a movie, you obviously get a lot of creative interpretations, and you might make some people happy, you might make other people upset. And then when you have a Reddit post that has a huge fan following,
Yeah,
now you're playing at a different level, where if you have 4 people liking something, it's a lot easier because there's less criticism. If you have 40,000 people doing something, now all of a sudden, it's kind of like you're opening yourself up for criticism if you fuck something up.
for sure. And honestly, there is fan fiction that already exists with Cerber. There is another sideline story that people have grown to love, which deals with another character completely within this Cerber kind of universe. And it's challenging, but I haven't had anybody really question me yet. So everybody's been really supportive. Nobody has really spoken against it, and people are interested to see kind of where it's going. I'm delving in currently to backstory and stuff that already exists, but going on, I already have issue number 3 already scripted, and that's really fun because that is one of the cliffhangers that hasn't been fleshed out for the second half of that story arc yet. But what's really, really cool for me is that if we do good on, like, say, this campaign and go on to issue number 3, there's a possible tie-in with my comic book Belial and Cerber, which is fun to merge those ideas and go into new territory with an existing property and have that mutual respect between everybody that's involved to be able to take it in that direction, which is super fun to me. And it like I said, it's more than humbling.
Yeah, no, I want to touch upon that in a second, but I do want to talk a little bit more about issue 2, because obviously there's a lot of stuff going in play in issue 2.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's this position where Jim is thrown into having access to potentially figuring out something that has haunted him, haunted his family, affected his life in many ways, and figuring out who killed his sister and why.
Yeah.
And so now he's dealing with some crazy shit, for lack of a better word, because he's dealing with an angry customer who he drove. The ghost of his murdered sister's in his car, and she's talking to him, giving him some access. But even I don't think she has the full picture of who killed her, per se, exactly, and why. And then there's some other stuff going on. So what is this like, too? Because it's an interesting story at this point where I don't think that somebody trying to uncover who killed their family member is the interesting part. The interesting part is that that person has come back from the dead.
Oh, yeah.
About it. And it's kind of like, okay, what do you do now?
Well, that's what's fun in issue number 1 is you actually do learn in the first issue that she does know who it is. They do know kind of their name, like, and that kind of comes in and sets it in for issue number 1. And in issue number 2, the killer actually contacts Jim, and so it's like he's just bold-faced, arrogant, like he's the shit, like I said, for lack of a better way to put it. He's arrogant, he doesn't care, he's smug, and he's ready to face off, and he's like, you want to do something about it, then let's do this. And so Jim is more of a shoot first, ask questions later. And so when he gets kind of smacked in the face with some truths that he hasn't expected, some assumptions that he drew from issue number 1 kind of get shed on in a different light in issue number 2. So there are twists and turns in the road that you go down to get to the conclusion of the first story arc that really I think is going to be surprising to a lot of people, and yet maybe not so much to others, but in a good way, in a really good way. And for people that have been, like, say, riding along with the Cerber story, being able to see it come through in a new medium and actually witness, the action take place in a very visual format is just super fun.
No, see, this is where this gets interesting as well, because obviously when we talk about stories, right? This is part 1, part 2, and then it ends. As far as not the world of Cerber, and I drive for Cerber, but this part of Jim. Now, this doesn't mean Jim doesn't have something else going on. It doesn't mean he's not going to be involved in a bunch of other things. It doesn't mean somebody else isn't going to pop up or somewhere else. Another story is not going to pop up in this world. But there's a conclusion here, because there's a beginning and a middle, and then there's a middle and then an end. Is how I describe issues 1 and 2. I think that's the only way you can describe it.
Absolutely.
The beginning of issue 2 is not the beginning. It is the middle.
Yeah.
The first, I don't know how big your book is. It like 28 pages or 32?
Issue number 2 is actually 36 pages.
You get where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
So legitimately, the middle of the book starts at page 19.
So it's really kind of cool because with the way that the book is laid out, you get these smaller rides that kind of commingle within the larger story. And so when you go through issue number 1 and he picks up a character basically that's Slenderman. He picks up an ogre named Borg. He picks up the ghost of his sister, and he picks up a character by the name of Siobhan, which turns out chaotically at the end of issue number 1. Now in issue number 2, he gets to pick up character Michael. He gets to meet Azazel, and he also gets to pick up Borg, who he became friends with in issue 1, to face off against the big bad Wade in issue number 2. So we're adding more characters even than from issue number 1. It's a whole thing. So being able to introduce these characters gives people something new to look forward to, and different personalities they get to interact with. And with issue number 1, you were either on Team Ray or Team Borg. In issue number 2, I resonated with Borg from issue number 1, and it's fun for me to watch him kind of Hulk out in issue number 2 with the big battle scene at the end there. But yeah, no, it is definitely 1.5 stories in the first one and 1.5 at the end of the issue number 2 that come together. If we were to break it up, standard comic is like 22 pages. So between the 32-page first comic and the 36 second, you're essentially getting 3 comics worth of content there.
So let's actually talk about that too, because this is something that I've been actually very curious about, and not pertaining to your book, but in general with a lot of people in comics, is that I think, what is it? The standard comic now is 22, 24 for the main ones, publication wise. So an Image book, a Dynamite book, a DC comic book, a Marvel book is 22, 24 pages, give or take. A double size is anywhere from 44 to like 50, give or take. Or a giant, or like Action 1000, whatever they want to throw into Action 1000, they'll throw in there, right? That's just the way DC runs it, which makes sense. But I feel on indie comics that the standard at this point has to be 28 plus, because I think there is a different standard now where you can't have a 22-page book. I mean, I'll be very honest. I think if you're producing a 22 or 24-page comic book and you're on Kickstarter, it's kind of like you're skimping and you're not at everybody else's level. And I don't know but I think it's also interesting, because when you get to 32 pages and then you get to another 32 pages, or you do 36-page books, that's 72 pages. That's 3, but complicated. And so, I'm just curious how you feel about this, because to me, it seems you have to do it, but it also seems counterintuitive.
I think for me, the mainstream comics and stuff are going off of long storylines, ongoing storylines, and everything else. They already have backstory people are familiar with. They don't have to set up all of that stuff. It's like a continuation. I think if stories like I Drive for Cerber go on long enough, that page count can come down, because you don't have to give that backstory. But I think in order to set up a good pace and have a good understanding to these newer titles, you've got to set it up appropriately without rushing people through it. And I think that's why I've dedicated through so far all of my own comic books with, like I said, Belial and Cerber and stuff, having the larger page count. It just allows me to tell a more complete story without leaving so many gaps.
Because it's actually been on my mind for like the last year and a half, this issue, where I'm like, great, you do 36 pages and 36 pages, that's 3 issues, as you stated, for the mainstream. But the issue is that if you're raising, it's more expensive, because let's say that you do your book in black and white, you still have to have it drawn. So 36 pages drawn, whether you color or you don't, you're still drawing an additional, I'm really bad at math, what is that, another 12 pages? Versus mainstream. So what is that? At least another 1,800 to $2,000, give or take.
Oh, absolutely. Even just for colors, like if you're going through that, like, and I ink my own book, so I save money there. But you know, I reclaim it in spending it for the color for Cerber. You know what I mean?
But my where I'm going with this is that but then if you raise the same amount that you would raise, you have to ask for more money then.
Yeah.
When you do that, when you have a longer book, and this is my whole thing, is that to me, this is why I say it seems counterintuitive because, and I don't know who said I'm going to do 28 pages, and then it became the new standard because it actually seems that it's counterintuitive. Where I think everybody in comics and you guys should be aiming for 24 pages. And I
Yeah.
understand your pacing issue, but it seems like this is setting up people to economically fail. To a degree.
I think it may have to do with the ability and time frame to put out comics. So like for myself, I might be able to do 2 stories a year of my own. I might be able to work on other people's in the meantime to help, you know, flesh out some other things. But the anticipation of the stories, I like to feel like I'm giving people, because they're not paying mainstream prices. They're paying a premium price point for an indie comic book. So I know for myself and a lot of other creators that I kind of converse with, we want to be able to give people, you know, a value. Now I know people that are doing super great comic books that are even only 18 pages. So where they fit are the type of books that they're telling. Some of the stuff that is maybe more your skin books might be a lower page count because that's, you know, people aren't going for the big story. You know what I mean?
I'll be honest. If somebody gave me 18 pages, I'm like, what the fuck, too?
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody gives me 24 pages of a good story and 24 pages of a good story, I'm happy. If somebody gives me 22 pages, I'm happy. But 18
Yeah.
pages, I'm like, what the hell? If I'm giving you $15, you're giving me 18 pages, that's a little expensive. That's 75 cents a page that I'm
Yeah.
buying. You know, if I'm giving you $15 and you give me 30 pages, I'm paying 50 cents a page. No, it's more. It's more. Actually, no. Yeah, my math is right on the first one. My bad. But my point is that the reason why I say it's counterintuitive and why this becomes, I think, an issue is that there's less money I feel in comics right now,
Oh,
and getting
for sure.
funded is harder. And I have my own economic theory about it,
Mhm.
where my economic theory is rooted in the fact that in COVID, people weren't going to work, so they
Yeah.
weren't spending money on their car, on gas, maintenance on their car, train transportation, lunch at work, going to concerts, going to the bar, going to outside venues, going to the ball game, going to cons.
Yeah.
And also money was dirt cheap. Money had almost a 0% interest. And there was no expenditure to borrow money during COVID, none whatsoever.
Yeah.
And now money is very expensive to borrow. It's very expensive to use. Inflation sucks. People
Yeah.
are back in their office at least 2 or 3 times a week, in certain respects. That means your car is getting more maintenance. That means gas is happening. That means if you were paying a toll to go to your job, you're paying a toll 2 or 3 times a week.
We're in
So
that rebound area. Yeah.
and then on top of that, you have inflation. On top of that, companies aren't necessarily giving bonuses or raises. And who knows where the economy is going to go. And I do not think the economy is okay. And what's actually happened is a lot of people have more backers, but they have less value in their backer.
Mm.
Their backers buying a digital because they can't afford a physical.
Sure. Yeah, no, it is kind of a weird catch. I mean, I've seen a lot of creators drop off because of all of this. I've seen a lot of people saying, "Hey, this might be the last book I do for a couple years until things kind of level out." And then you do see other people that are like, "No, I've still got to do it, even if it comes out of pocket. I've got to keep pushing through. I've got stories to tell. This is what I want to do." And so it kind of has separated the passive interested people to the passionate people, I think. And so a lot of stronger stories, I think, are rising to the top.
Yeah, I don't even know about that either. I think there's a lot of bad stories still in comics.
Really?
I think a lot of people are tough And I think, I think that there's plenty of people say I'm in this for life, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, everybody. I'm going to say this right here. You're going to have to deal with me as a podcast for the next 30 years. I'm not going anywhere, whether my show is good or bad. But that doesn't mean I have a great show. That just means I'm not leaving.
Right.
And that's what I
Right.
think is happening in comics, is that I think a bunch of people said I'm not leaving, where I will make this happen. And if that means instead of doing 4 books, I'll do 3 a year, or I'll do 2 a year, but I'm not leaving. And I think this is an issue of business more so than anything else. I mean, there are comic shows that say we're the indie comic business show. And I'm like, no, you're not. Because if you were
Yeah.
the indie comic business show, you would be talking about, great, I made a $500 surplus. Where do I put that $500? That gets me not to the next hump, but how do I turn that $500 into 5,000? How do I turn that 5,000 into 25,000? And you'd be talking about, do I print 100 books or 200 books? And do I presume a debt in the short term for the long term? So what I
Yeah.
think's happened is that I think a bunch of people are passionate, and I think we're really discovering, and I hate using the phrase the boys and the men, but I don't think we have very good men, and in this case, men means very good creators right now in comics. I don't.
Yeah.
I think it's 50-50
I
at
think
best.
the desperation of COVID and everything else has triggered a lot of people into reaching out in new areas and trying to create these new ideas. And some of them have been resonating and some of them haven't. And all of us as creators, we all get excited for our own idea. So it's getting harder to connect with people that are not starved for entertainment anymore.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. I think, and this is what I'm curious about. So I agree, where I love new ideas, right? As somebody who enjoys finance, enjoys music, enjoys, sports, I love new ideas. I
Yeah.
just got involved and interested in power slapping. That's a brand new sport, fascinating sport, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So interesting, so addicting. Never would have thought on Rumble. I'm like, it's 4 in the morning. What the fuck? It was 10 o'clock like 3 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Like 6 hours later, you're like, oh my God, I gotta work in 2 hours. What the fuck? Like, you're watching interviews, you're watching replays, you're watching it from a different angle. It's great. So I agree. But I also think that maybe these ideas aren't being tested. Like in your book, and I think this is relatable, is that your idea is a new idea and a new presentation of it, and a
Mhm.
new viewpoint of it. But the idea was tested, that there is a fan base for it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where this gets really interesting, is that I don't know if people are truly soft testing their ideas.
Yeah, that was one of the lures for me for Cerber, is that I got into it because my oldest son, he loved creepypastas, and creepypastas were popular then. So I started trying to find a connection point with my son. When I was reading these, then I found I Drive for Cerber on Reddit, and then I discovered that it had already a fan base, fan fiction, audio, a bunch of stuff. And so I was like, you know what? I think I can represent this in a way that would be positive and supportive of the existing property. And I'd like to get into this, and it works. I love the recipe for it. And I think other people would enjoy the meal that is I Drive for Cerber, and serve it up on a plate that is something that people have already tasted. They've sampled the goods, and now giving them a, they've had the like a 3-star story that has the potential for a 5-star meal, and being able to take all of these things, which is why I've taken the novel format, the long format, and I've taken the audio, these pre-existing, and I've made sure to support those platforms in bringing it together with the comic book, in making an audio visual presentation of the book as well as the standard version. So making sure that people that have grown to love it as it existed, and incorporating that into what I'm bringing to the table, has been kind of fruitful, I think, and allowed that extended accessibility for people. So whether it's people that are like have a like visual impairment or something, but they still want to get involved with the comic book and support the community that this stems from, which is the creepypasta and cryptid communities, and shining a light on something that has existed, but in a new light. I felt it was a safe investment, and you always look for a sure thing when you're investing, minimum risk. And to me, this had the minimum risk, maximum benefit to the whole community.
Yeah, let's actually talk about that too, because this is the thing is that obviously when I do an interview, it's just my time for
Mhm.
the most part, right? It's very low risk, but there's also a huge reward. Because once I do an interview, I can cut that interview up and then it's in my backlog. If I cut, this interview up into 6 spots and then I throw those 6 spots out into somewhere in 6 months from now, and then they generate me content, all of a sudden, who knows, one of these pieces could hit and then I get 300 views on it, or
Yeah.
it's just in my library. Fast forward, you do this enough times, you have 7,000 videos on YouTube, and then you get monetized, and all that gets monetized.
Right.
Very, very, very low risk for a very high potential. And I think that's where this gets interesting, is that I think everybody in comics is trying to say, I want to hit a home run and I want to win the game. But I think that people need to learn you got to get on first base first.
That's why I've stuck to having shorter run comic books. Some people jump into this game and they're trying to go for 101 issues. Like I've got Belial's going to be a 4-part story arc. I've got I Drive for Cerber, which this first story arc is just 2 parts. You're going to get that, and it's something that I can then take to shop to larger publisher entities. So maybe I can get into Diamond. So maybe I can distribute a complete story and get myself out there, because if I can manage to find something that resonates hard enough with a complete story that I can shop out and say, hey, for your investment, now I'm bringing up that success to everybody that's involved and taking it at a larger platform, and then I can reinvest in that to create even bigger stories. So I'm trying to take a responsible and enjoyable track into it.
Did you also feel that, and I don't know how you feel, but I'll tell you how I feel as a podcast. I think it's somewhat relevant. Is that every time I do an interview, and it's going to sound messed up, and hopefully people understand where I'm going with this, is every interview that I do it's not a stepping stone, but it's another step on the path.
Yeah.
And some interviews are also a stepping stone, without a doubt. If you interview the Bushwhackers, that's a big milestone. It's a big stepping stone to go over.
Yeah.
There are certain people who have been around the block. When I did Denny O'Neil, it's a big deal, and it's definitely it's a credible or credibility builder interview when you do things like that. But also every interview that I do is another step in the path that I just crossed over.
Absolutely.
And
Not every step is solid. Some of those are rocky and you got to readjust yourself.
without a doubt. I mean, and look, some of those steps are sideways, some of those steps are not progressive, some of those steps are leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
If you ever play Chutes and Ladders, sometimes if you roll a 6 and then you roll a 1, you go to space 54.
For sure.
If you roll a 3, you go to space 84. But again, if you roll a 4, you're on space 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not every step it gets you to the top immediately. But what I figured out and what I understand, and the reason why I bring this up, is that I think a lot of creators are saying, I want to write the book and I want to hit a massive home run and I want to run away with the show.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes you gotta take baby steps. And it's kind of like if you do a 2-part series and then you get a little bit more credibility and a little bit more credibility and a little bit more credibility, all of a sudden you have a bunch of work, and then you get into Diamond, or you get into Antarctic Press, or you get into Scout, or wherever else you're going to go. Or maybe you just self-distribute yourself, where there's enough position there where you go to a con and you're selling out of your table, or you're selling 50 books here, 50 books here. You go to your local flea market or a bunch of comic shops, say, hey, we like this. We want to support it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is that think a lot of people are generation now.
Yeah, and I know that, like, for myself, what I've been trying to do is establish like an identity with the type of stories that I make. And so I don't stray necessarily too far from my original interest. I'm not doing a children's book and then an adult book. And then, so, what I do have is stuff that has similar interests. So Belial, of course, I make with Chuck, and Cerber.
Who's
This has
Chuck
been a
again?
bridge. What's that?
Who's Chuck again?
Chuck is my
I'm
co-creator.
joking.
No, but I've this is my bridge into a solo project. So Cerber is kind of partnership, and then one of my newest ideas, I've actually written the first draft of a novel that is straight psychological horror. So as I'm going through each one of these steps, I'm kind of seeing what people are interested in, trying to dip my toe in the water and see where people are following me and lean into what aspects are kind of successful. But I'm trying to evaluate as I'm doing each step. And the feedback, I ask for feedback. I ask for honesty. I ask for brutality.
Let's actually talk about this because there's two things going on. So I stopped listening to feedback completely.
Okay.
So here's why. What I found is that you get 20% great feedback, and the other 80 is opinion mixed with criticism, with a bunch of people not telling you what the hell's going on. So if
Yeah.
I tell you, hey, Shaun, I really like this cover, and I would pick up some of these covers because I think they'll sell in my eBay store, that's different feedback than somebody saying, oh, I didn't really like the line on that cover over there, or that cover was a little too grotesque for me, right? Because again, but obviously, I mean that's not a good example of this. But I've asked people for feedback on my show. They're like, I didn't like the questions you asked that person. I'm like, that's not telling me anything. So he said,
Yeah.
Andrew, you should shut the fuck up and let your guest speak. And I'm like, you got a point, man. Maybe I on that interview didn't let somebody speak.
Yeah.
But then there's been another interview. So it was Billy Starks that I interviewed, and then I interviewed Hart Fisher. And I let Hart speak. But the reason why, and a few people said, dude, that was a great interview, because I steered Hart and let him speak in a way that I handled the interview beautifully, where it was just like guiding water on a water downward. And it was a beautiful interview. And people were like, you let him speak, but you didn't, you let him go far, and then you brought him back and steered him back in. And then he went a little far again, and you spiraled him down, but you got where you wanted to go.
Yeah.
But
well, that's a good interview skill.
But the point is that people gave me feedback on both those interviews. People said, I didn't like how you asked that question. And or I didn't like that you didn't bring up this point of this voice actor and didn't ask me about this anime. And I'm like, well, I asked him 60 questions in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I didn't get your question in. That's why I stopped asking for feedback, because what I found is it's not brutality that I want. It's I want legit feedback. But that's how I feel, is that I don't need people's feedback anymore for that.
The way that I look at it is, as far as feedback, and the reason why I do ask for feedback is that when somebody tells me this is wrong, this is right, this is whatever, it is a sign that there is something wrong, but I don't listen to how to fix it. What I want is the identification of something that I can improve on, and that there's something there, but it is up to me to suss out where exactly that is. Because a lot of times people that offer those recommendations don't know what the shit they're talking about, but everybody's passionate about their viewpoints. And so their viewpoint, that's what's buying my comic book. Their views are buying what I'm creating. They're buying what I'm selling. And so my goal is to create something that they can say, you know what, that felt right. I don't know what it is, but that felt right. It hit those marks. Or that wasn't my thing. And that's okay, because it's not for everybody. But if I can identify there is a larger group of my market that is interested in what I'm doing than what is sensing there's something wrong, then okay, I'm good. I can move on.
No, I feel you on that. In which that I know when I hit gold, and I know when I'm on the money, right? And
Yeah.
my audience knows when I'm on the money. My audience also understands that, but also as an interviewer, when I'm going from a comic person to a cosplayer to a wrestler, I'm not expecting the comic person to be like, wrestling go team go. But also, I mean, I have a second show going on right now, and all we do is we talk about wrestling. But some people who are into comics are like, yo, I love wrestling right now because it's awesome.
Yeah.
And WrestleMania just happened and everybody's having a good time. So that's perfectly fine, but I'm not expecting the audience to convert. So if somebody drops me feedback saying, Andrew, your wrestling show sucks, I'm like, well, you're probably not the right audience for it. But there's been people giving me really good feedback on
Yeah.
certain things, fellow podcasters, but they've also given me technical positions. They've never given me a question on an interview. But when
Mhm.
somebody says, Andrew, your lighting sucks, or Andrew, you need a microphone, I'm like, but I heard people have great microphones and their show sucks because it's the
Yeah.
content that matters. So again, I've gotten feedback of people trying to help, but I don't know if their feedback is legitly valid. And that's the problem. And that's why I stopped asking for it.
I got you. I got you.
Because
So it
because
just
my
wasn't in alignment with what you were looking to improve upon.
it's that, and it's also the idea of saying, wait a second, this person has an amazing setup, great lighting, and amazing positions, but their show sucks and their viewership is not being achieved. And then I'm like, my lighting sucks, my power went out, and I got 10,000 views. Explain to me. And my voice cracked 15 times, and for the last 30 minutes, nobody could hear a question I asked, and I still got all those views. Like, and
Yeah.
that's a hyperbole exaggeration of the situation, but that's why my feedback position is what it is now. I don't need that position anymore because I know what needs to be fixed.
Sure.
But I've been doing this for 10 years. But I understand in comics that the way I feel is that if, let's say that Chuck was your editor and he was giving you feedback, that's
Sure.
also different too. If you're
Mhm.
paying for feedback, that's different as well.
And you're paying for targeted feedback. You're going for something specific because there are so many different types of editors. So depending on whether or not they're a content editor or a proofreader or whatever, you're going for a specific type of feedback too. So that's different. When you ask for generalized feedback, like say from a reader or something like that, you don't know what to expect. You don't know where it's going to come from. You don't know what you're asking for. It's whatever they're interested in giving you.
And it could also be that they're giving you something and they're having a bad day. Because
That's
I've given
true.
people really shitty feedback on a bad day, and then I said, "Look, your book just was bad, and boy, that book made me want to kill myself." And so he's like, "Really?"
Well, I
And
had somebody say they wanted to set Belial on fire one time, so I took it as a win, though. So I don't know.
that's great. That's absolutely wonderful. No, my point that I'm getting at is that feedback is whatever, but I do want to talk about another point that you also mentioned is that you are looking at what's interesting, what is trending, what is hot, and what aligns with your interests.
Yeah,
And I had Shaun from Comics Elite on, and he stated something that people thought was controversial, but he basically said that whatever's hot, I'm going to put on a comic cover. And a bunch of people took issues with that. And I didn't take an issue with that because I'm a businessman.
right.
I buy and sell books. I just bought a bunch of Taylor Swift books, everybody, because I know Taylor Swift is hot in
Oh,
more than
for
one
sure.
way. And she makes people jealous. Because when you're dating Travis Kelce, he could do 3 things at once now. So that commercial of 2 things at once is not working anymore.
Yeah,
Pfizer made a bad decision on that commercial. Not because their vaccination is good or bad, but because he won a 3rd time.
yeah, yeah.
So that commercial is inaccurate. That's all I'm gonna say. But all jokes aside, I'm gonna sell a bunch of Taylor Swift books because she's hot and her books sell. And
Yeah,
if she's in Deadpool 3, her books are only going to get hotter. And
for
if
sure.
all of a sudden she does something terrible and she's no longer hot, I am moving on to the next thing.
Yeah,
So what is that like? Because I think that's also a problem in comics where people do not understand that you have to kind of get in on trends.
I think again, it depends on the ability to turn product out in a timely manner. Because I think if you're like, for me, I'm trying to, because everything happens in a cycle, right? Interests, fashion, television themes, all that stuff, everything happens in a cycle. And so you can kind of see what's coming along. And a lot of people that are able to turn out quick books, they're like South Park. They're able to turn out whatever's hot right now, and they do it right now. For somebody like me, I almost have to work on a predictory basis. I have to kind of say, okay, what was big, a couple years ago, knowing that I'm going to have to put this out in something that might be big again. And so that's where I'm trying to operate on a different level. I'm not going with what is necessarily currently hot, because currently hot would be like Cthulhu or anime covers, stuff like that, manga covers and stuff like that. I'm trying to go with, where am I seeing content starting to kind of stem itself and plant itself, and where it's starting to go.
You're taking the rookie baseball card approach.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Everything goes back to sports, guys. Everything goes back to sports to me. We're in baseball season. What can I say? But it goes back to the idea that there are valuable baseball cards of rookie players that you buy a bunch of them, and I mean, and then all of a sudden, fast forward, that guy, 15 years later, is the best player ever.
yeah.
I mean, a Derek Jeter rookie card was like $1 when Michael Jordan's a better example. Michael Jordan's rookie card, you could have bought that in his like third year for $50. And then fast forward, you could sell that rookie card right now in a graded 9 for 5 to 6 grand.
Yeah. It's crazy. See, yeah. So and that's the thing. I guess if you were to put it in those terms, I'm trying to, scout out the rookies versus trading existing, players that are already big.
There's nothing wrong with trading players already big.
No, there's not. And that's why there's a lot of people that are nailing it right now. It depends on which league you're playing in currently and how many games you can play and what time frame.
You're mentioning something interesting. It also depends how much cash flow you have. It also depends what your bigger goal is, right?
Yep.
So for instance, and this is going to equate back to me because I think again, hopefully this is relevant and hopefully it helps people. But if I get a big name, so if I get Keith Garvey on my show, right? Big, great artist, fantastic, love Keith. But then I get somebody who's brand new, like Lance Footer I had on. Lance Footer is beyond talented, is going to be huge, and is going to be a superstar. But if you get Keith Garvey draws an attention, but then Lance Footer, you're betting on Lance Footer to be the next big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important to have both of those things. So I've had somebody like Danielle DiNicola who has 600,000 Instagram followers on my show, but then I had a cosplayer who had 100. He's like, yo, you want to talk to me? Why the fuck do you want to talk to me, man? I'm like, it's like your Green Lantern cosplay. It's like, yeah, man, let's do it. I'm like, yeah, because guess what? What happens if he's the next big thing? I look really good.
Right.
And so, but again, I don't know if my friend Darian Turner is going to be the next big thing, but I'm still happy we did the interview.
Yeah.
But again, if I can do 100 cosplayers and 80 of them have to be unheard of, and then the 20 have to be superstars, because somebody from that 80 will become the next superstar.
Oh, sure. It's that risk versus reward. You have to, like I said, it's everything that every move you make is an investment. Sometimes you're going to take one that's a known entity and low risk, high reward. And then there's ones that are, your 10 to 1s and you're just feeling lucky that day. And it works out. But that's the same thing with everything that we do.
I think it's so interesting. And I think this is fascinating because it's interesting what you're doing. And I think this is where people in comics fuck up, for lack of a better word, is that you need to understand the bigger picture. And again, it's easy for me to say this, but obviously I run my eBay business. And so I've taken real spec books and I've taken the solid thing. And I've done things in between. Like I know the Taylor Swift books that I bought today are golden.
Yeah.
I know they're golden, right? I know that. And then I know I bought a baseball card on Monday and I sold that thing within like 5 hours. I don't even have it. And I'm not going to have it for 80 days. It's crazy, which is even crazier. So I'm going to take the money that I made from it, lock it up into a high yield interest account for 2.5 months, get my 4% on it. And then it's terrible. And then after the card shipped out, and then it'll be a really good trade if I pull a low number on that card. Oh my God. If I pull number 16, the 16 versions of that card, oh my God. That's going to be an unbelievable trade.
Yeah.
The card was a $70 card.
Nice.
It wasn't expensive for Dwight Gooden's Met Jersey retirement autograph card. What's crazy is that I bought two, and the one that I sold paid for both.
See, that's nice though. That feels good.
That feels amazing. Feels amazing. I'm gonna throw a lot of bonus cards to him though. To the guy who bought it. I don't know where he's from, but he got a good deal. I got a good deal. Everybody got it because I wasn't.
Yeah.
There were people asking like 180 for it. I sold it for like 140. Which is good. Which is good. I made what I needed to make. He made what he needed to make. Got it for. Everybody was happy. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, this is where I think everybody's messed up on this. See, this is why I want to have these conversations.
Well, I know that I'm taking a little bit of a different approach. As you know, I mean, like you said, we've known each other for a while, but I have a very big collaborative and community-based mindset. I have the Indie Comic Conspiracy on Facebook. It's about community and helping everybody else rise up.
I'm the best helper there. I can tell you that.
Yeah. And then with Belial, I pitched an idea. Chuck really liked it, and he was willing to invest in me, and we grew that story. So it's not a far stretch for me to want to act almost, like I said, like a scout for some of these other stories that maybe have started to kind of plant themselves, but maybe I feel are unrecognized, that I have faith that are something bigger. If I don't make very many stories that are 100% mine, I'm okay with that. That's why I'm an inker. I love the collaboration of it. And I like being able to share that success. I want the success of Cerber to go back to Mofucius, the original writer, Scott Pye, who is Nature's Temper, the audio. I want it to go back to Kyron Silva, who did the pencils, and I want it to go back to Kenny Aiken with colors. I want to be able to share that and watch everybody else rise. And if they can look back and if they get more successful than me on a bigger scale, but they still look back and they're like, you were pivotal in making it what it is and who I am. Thank you.
Let's actually talk about that, because right now, I'll just say it, I think a lot of people in comics are selfish. I think a lot of people are in it for me and me only.
Yeah.
And I could tell you that I didn't come into comics, I didn't come into interviewing to be about me. I came into this to be about something bigger than me. Now, it's my show and I have an ego, just like everybody else has an ego. No problem. I think it's crystal clear that I have an ego, and I'm sure a lot of other people have an ego as well. But at the same time, I also recognize that when I'm interviewing somebody, I'm helping them out. And what I'm experiencing right now is people only hit me up when they need me. And people are now hitting me up saying, could you interview the people I'm helping out to do their book, because I like your show and you're a really good interviewer for people who need it. And I'm like, great, but they're paying you to do X.
Yeah.
I've also been in circumstances where a booker is getting paid, charging his client, and then he wants me to interview his clients.
Right.
That are paying him. And so there's been a problem in comics where I think there's a very selfish component going on right now. And I think it's been here for a while. And I don't know if it's ever going to leave. I don't.
Probably not. I mean, as long as everything's going around the way it is. I mean, even on launching a Kickstarter, you'll get, on the first day, I think I got like 8 to 10 people spamming me saying, "Hey, we see what you're doing. We see you didn't fund within the first, 2 hours. I can help you be successful." Then you look and you're like, "But you haven't backed anything. Your profile doesn't have anything." But people that are unknowledgeable will still go in for that, which is why that exists, And it's really hard because I also see people that are marketing themselves as comic book promoters and taking a paycheck from that and then digging into people who are like,
they are if you want.
"Oh no, I'm good on that, man." But there are some out there, and there's
where I got no problem. I'll state it. I mean, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you publicly if you have an issue with me saying who I have a problem with who does that.
I don't have any problem with you stating from your viewpoint either at all.
My viewpoint is that Jeffrey Haas did it the wrong way, where he hid the fact that he was getting paid until people were booked. And that's part of the problem too, is that if you hide a fact and then I find out that person paid you $600 over 3 months, my reaction is, what the fuck?
Yeah, then you're taking advantage of two people, not.
No. He didn't take advantage of his client. His client got what he wanted.
Okay.
And Jeffrey got what he wanted.
Are you sure they got the return that they were hoping for on that investment?
That's different though. They took a risk. They didn't get taken advantage of, right? Because they said, I need somebody to book me on shows. If Jeffrey got him on 20 shows, that's not the problem. Jeffrey did his job and his client was not taking advantage.
Okay.
Completely understandable. The issue is that I didn't get paid and I was deceived.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So if Jeffrey says, my client's paying me money, he doesn't have to disclose, but I want you to interview him for free, do you agree? I could say no.
That's the difference between, like, say, if I come to you and say, "Hey, would you mind interviewing me for Cerber?" versus, "Hey, could you, I'd like to go to you for this guy because I like what you're doing." Then you are shopping out and trying to catch on behalf of somebody else versus yourself. I'm not.
It's
like
different
when I come to you.
It's different if you said, "Hey, Andrew, could I bring somebody to the interview we're doing?"
Yeah.
That's also different.
Yeah.
Most people say, yeah, sure. Unless you knew it was a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I have a real issue with somebody, I say, look, I like you. I have a real problem with him. We don't get along. I'm not interested. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I've said to people, I said, look, you have a relationship with him. I'm not dealing with him ever on my show. Don't bring him. You bring him, we're done. And people say, okay.
And you're not establishing yourself. You've established yourself in the arena that you want to exist in. That's different too, because you're not begging people for their interviews either. So it's not working the other way around either. They're coming to you because you have established an identity that is positive to what their intention is versus you wanting to build something that doesn't exist yet.
And the mistake Jeffrey made, and I have no problem stating this, and I'll happily talk to Jeffrey about it, is that the mistake he made is that I have buy me a coffee. I have, a cash app. Why don't you say to your clients, hey, I deal with Andrew and I'm going to be booking 30 guests on his show in the next year. Let me throw him $10 here. Let me throw him, let me say, hey, man, whose book do you want? I'll take care of it. And you go back to everybody and say, look, you got to do me a solid. I got you on a lot of shows. I'm charging you a below fair rate. I need a book so I can send it to him.
Well, you're essentially the venue at which a band plays at that goes through whatever the marketer is for that.
So let's say the venue, their son loves Metallica, right? And I own the venue and my son loves Metallica, hypothetically, and you're the promoter and I'm doing you a solid by getting it. If I say to you as a promoter, hey, could you get me, a signed Metallica poster? You got to fucking do it.
Yeah.
And you got to say to the band, say, look, I do a lot of business with this guy and this is what I need. And the band has to understand. It's just business. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that Jeffrey made, is that he didn't understand that you pissed off the middlemen, and then you didn't just piss off with me, you pissed it off with people like Tyler Carpenter, and about 10 other people caught on really quickly and got really upset.
Well, yeah, the audience sees what goes down in the end. Yeah.
The audience saw it because me and Tyler spoke about it for an hour and a half. And
Yeah.
people were very torn on it, actually. It wasn't so simple, because people were like, wait a second. And then I said, look, this is why I ran my campaign. I was charging for interviews, because fast forward, this is already happening. It's the exact thing I said. People made fun of me, and then it happened.
Yeah.
And I don't foresee it. That will come eventually, without a doubt. But it goes back to the fake promoter. This all goes back to this fake promoter and understanding of how to do certain things.
Yeah.
Start events.
It's all right. It happens. It's destined to happen sometimes, man. Unavoidable.
The Braves are winning, though, so that's the important part. I just put a lot of money on them. Following my gambling strategy. They're playing Houston, though, so it's all right.
Wow.
Houston's not a real team, so it's all right. No, Houston's a very good team. They threw a no-hitter this year.
Really?
4 games in, they threw a no-hitter.
Nice.
With a guy who wasn't even supposed to be on the team. Talk about craziness, right?
That's wild. Yeah.
That should have been a bet prop, right?
That's how things align. Yeah.
You parlay that. Guy is in AAA, 3 injuries, gets brought up, no hitter. It's a 5-leg parlay. And if you win, you get money and you get free tickets. That's the payout. It's terrible, but no. But I think you're touching upon something, or at least we touched upon something. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if we accomplished anything with my rant, but my issue is that I think there's a lot of problems right now in comics where I just think that there's a lot of fake experts. There's a lot of people paying for a lot of things that they probably are getting overcharged for.
Yeah.
And there's also a lack of or a non-existent creative idea of because comics is a creative process.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. I'll be very honest. It does not seem like being in comics is fun.
It's one of those things. It's like raising kids. 90% of the time you want to just throw them off a cliff and shake them, and then there's 10% of the time where they are your world, man, and you live for that 10%. You go through all of the hardships for that 10% because of what it grows into.
You're doing a really bad job of convincing me to have children. You are making an excellent argument for birth control and condoms right now.
Look, I'm a parent who is also now the happy recipient of a vasectomy. So let's that knowledge is king. Let me tell you.
Oh my God, there's so many things I could say. We're again. I have a sponsor till June, and Preston will hopefully Preston will renew. Hopefully, but if he doesn't, I'm good anyway. I'm good for another year, everybody. So you're stuck with me for another year. So you're all gonna have to live to learn with me.
Hells yeah.
And I will find another sponsor. Miraculously, I always survive. I'm kind of like a cockroach. You just can't kill me. Which is crazy how they eat and absorb moisture. Oh my God. It's amazing, but it's disturbingly disgusting, but also fascinating. But anyway, but I think this is interesting. So I mean, I like talking about shop of comics and business of comics and figuring it all out. And I actually think it's refreshing that you have a very collaborative mind. Because what you seem is that you say, hey, look, I want to make money with people.
Yeah.
Them to make money. I want them to have success. And I just don't see that in comics right now.
It's a hard thing because a lot of us have kind of accepted the fact that there's not money in making comics. So the next best thing for me is making more comics and building relationships.
Let me ask you this about that, because I actually agree with you where I think more money. I see campaigns that do 50,000 right on Kickstarter, but I don't think they're making money.
It depends on audience base is everything, and you see some of these people like celebrities and stuff, like, I don't know. I mean, you can see how much money Good Omens made on their Kickstarter. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Just
I'll state this, and I'll state this to be very honest. I mean, I have a real issue right now with people on Kickstarter. Like, I have a real, and I actually think I'm in the right, and I'm going to get shit for this. I have a real issue with Pat Chan on Kickstarter.
mhm.
And here's my issue is that you're doing almost 20 campaigns. Same thing with Dustin Burnell. I like Dustin, I like Pat. But my issues with them is that you're doing a lot of campaigns, 1 or 2 a month,
Yeah, that's a lot.
and you're not fulfilling your campaigns fast enough to do that. And I'm not saying you're stealing. I want to make that crystal clear, but I feel like you're bending the rules where I
Yeah, for
think
some people.
you need to calm down, and I think Kickstarter needs to say, hey, we like what you do, and we get that you're raising a lot of money here for us, but your books are late, man.
Now, here's the thing, though. In order to do that with Kickstarter, you have to earn what they consider a creator in good standing. So you have to maintain that standard, and you have to have so many percentage up to X amount. So this campaign is technically the one that decides whether or not I'm in a creator in good standing. At this point, moving forward, while I'm waiting to fulfill this one, I can technically start another one, but it's up to me to maintain that chain. If I skip a step anywhere along the way, I lose it. So at some point, Kickstarters recommend like realizing that they are fulfilling within their version of a timely manner.
But they're not. That's the thing. They're not.
Hmm.
They on any legal position, and there is going to get a point where lawsuits are brought against Kickstarter on this issue, without a doubt. It's coming.
Are they doing it all under the same name, or are they creating separate accounts and running them?
It's both. It's both.
Okay, so that,
And
yeah,
I'll make an argument saying it is owned by the same person, and that
okay,
they are essentially the same company. If
okay.
you have 4 accounts and you are all operated by the same person, that is an umbrella company.
That, yeah, and that's not a healthy practice. That's kind of deceptive
It might
at the
be, it might
base.
be legal. Kickstarter might be looking the other way, but I think there is a fair argument to be made saying this is bending the rules, and I think this comes down to the position, because I'll be honest. I think I'll tell you exactly how this is going to end. This is going to end in Congress with legislation.
Okay.
This is how it's going to end. It's coming, and this is the one thing everybody does not have on their comic bingo card is legislation, because there's one department that wants this: consumer protections, without a
Mhm.
fucking doubt. I could tell you they are a feared group in DC, and this is a consumer protection issue.
Sure.
Because right now, legally, you can sue somebody, a creator, on Kickstarter. So you could sue an individual because
Well,
you're
they've got that disclaimer that it's not guaranteed. I mean, you have to go after the individual, not the actual entity of Kickstarter.
But I'm gonna make an argument, and this is where this gets interesting. This is my biggest problem with people like Pat Chan and Dustin Burnell, and there's others. There's others. It's not just the 2 of them. My biggest issue is that when you have 8 projects that have not been delivered yet, but you're funding the next one and the next one and the next one, and you're doing 20, 30, 40, $50,000, my response is saying, bro, where's my book?
Yeah, because you're funding the process. You've already overfunded the process. There's no reason. You have the type of financial backing to be able to get all of the necessary components to have multiple people involved in a timely book to be produced.
It goes to the position where this is why when you said there's not much money in comics, I think that they might be doing 50,000, but they're not making that money. They might be losing money per book.
It might be depending on how much they have to pay out for the the
I think what they're losing money on is potentially some of the art, some of the writing, but the
yeah,
staffing and the printing of it, and every other component in there that goes into a business. And
yeah,
that's why I think this is interesting. And I think it's really, really, really interesting. And so I stopped looking at people's campaigns. I started looking at where their houses are at, what their
mm,
cars are at, how fast they can deliver. Because I mean, in my business, I go through liquidity and I go through prosper times and then liquidity crunches, but I do pull money out of my business.
yeah,
And I'm able to pull, anywhere from 40 to 60% out of my business if I want to in cash. That to me is a successful
that's
business.
nice. Yeah,
I don't know if people are able in comics right now who are doing these $50,000 campaigns to pull out that much money, but they
yeah,
should be able to. Once you
yeah.
reach a
Not
certain amount of
many.
money, you should be able to pull out a certain amount of cash.
Sure.
That's why I think this is so interesting when you say that, because I look at the big guys and I'm like, wait a second, why are they late?
Yeah,
They
that's
should
true.
have this down pat, and it's a repeatable pattern. It's not
Man,
just
if
time.
I made enough on a comic book, I would definitely be turning books, man. If I don't have the time to do the inking, but I'm pulling in big money, I'm hiring somebody that can turn that project quicker for sure. It's I've got to operate with honor and integrity in all things. So that's a personal standard.
That's why I think this is interesting. I really think, because I agree that there is not a lot of money in comics. There's probably very little money in comics, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I digress. Now that I got us both canceled, the Braves are winning, by the way. Just want to make that
Nice.
crystal clear. It's the ninth inning. It's the ninth inning. They're up by two, and they have one out. So I'm very excited. Um, I have a gambling problem, everybody. All I do is I win. But yeah, so I do want to talk about your book though a little bit more, because you have some interesting stuff going on with that. So you got a few covers, which I
Yeah.
was very lazy. I didn't bring them in because I was tired today. I'm sorry. Oh shit, they got bases loaded. This is exciting. Which is good because we're at the reward part. This might determine if I back your book or not. So you better hope they hit a home run.
I'll watch you leap at the screen.
I'm watching it on my iPhone. It's amazing. I'm watching the gambling thing. The odds are just going all the way up. I just put like $10 on the Braves like 30 minutes ago too, which is great. So I'm gonna be very excited. You're also gonna see me very sad if they lose. But it's, what the Braves guys, the Braves give you what, like 95 wins a year. They can't win in the playoffs, but they'll give you
No,
95 wins. But I think the Mets won 2 today, so that's good.
I don't know anything. Like I said, I'm out of it when it comes to sports.
It's all right. So what I like about one of the rewards on your book is the scenic tour.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with that one? Because that I like that idea. I think more comics should do that, to be honest.
Like I said, in my efforts to maintain as much community as possible and like grow together, it was my way to incorporate all the aspects of Cerber and all of its identities. So the original novelization of it, the audio, and then the comic aspect. And that was my way of bringing it all together and create a presentation that is like those read along books, like when you're a kid. So I went through and have the audio by Nature's Temper, but I also went through and did all the page turn sounds and have all that incorporated there with the whole voice acting and everything. Audiobooks are really, really big. People are really busy. People are busy trying to make their money and don't have time necessarily to sit down and read a book. Maybe they've got kids and they've got something else they want to do. They can sit them down with this audio and say, here, look at these pictures and go along for this ride. And it was just my way of being able to make it more accessible to people, to incorporate the love that the Cerber and creepypasta community has for this story. And I wanted to pay tribute to everybody.
I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting because there's like no words in there, and then you get all the medium, and you get a nice combination. And I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. it worked out really well with the first campaign too, to the point that I actually have USB drives that I bring with me to conventions, where I put all of the digital content on there, so people can actually get that. And that stemmed also from somebody being visually impaired. They wanted to enjoy the comic book, but they weren't able to read the speech bubbles. And so that was another way to kind of incorporate that too, because digitally you can zoom into the pictures. They weren't completely blind, but they were legally blind. So giving them a way to look and follow along with this stuff was important.
Yeah, so to even go into that a little bit, what is that like to actually understand how to even provide a product and bring a product such as a USB drive? So I think that's fascinating too in certain regards, is that it's interesting, right?
Yeah,
How things are distributed now and what people want. And also there's all these digital rewards too.
sure.
And I don't know what else you have on that USB drive, but I think this is also something that's really interesting, is that a lot of people give their first issue for free, stretch goals and cross
Mhm.
promotion. And if you have a USB drive, that seems almost perfect as a cross promotion tool.
It can be. It's a little pricey to get them produced. I mean, depending on what you get. Now, there's a fine line between something that is a good value and something that just is a toss, is a throwaway. You can get a lot of cheaper ones, but I went for one that is like, this is what it looks like. It's got a leather strap to it, and it's got the USB thing there. But I also have, if somebody gets one, I have these little um like USB to Type C adapters, so they can actually put it right into their um, Apple tablets and stuff like that. It's just understanding the need for accessibility and being able to include as many people as possible.
I think it works really well, and it's just my thoughts. I'm curious what you think. Is it works if you have a big library already?
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
if
so
you
that's the thing. If somebody buys this, there's no extra cost to me. Everything's already been created. There's no printing cost or anything. I'm looking to recoup this cost right here, and then be able to plant a little bit, like maybe like 30% back into the business, so I can make more comic books out of that.
Yeah,
But
I'll
so,
tell you, I'll tell you who is a really good idea for Travis Gibb.
oh, for sure. Absolutely, 110%.
He is perfect for that product and that
Yeah,
idea, without a doubt. He is perfect. Pat Shand is perfect for it. Dustin Burnell is perfect for it, because when you have 20 books,
a library. Yeah.
you have a library. It's almost like if I was to USB my top interviews, right? And
Mhm.
you had a master class of 50 hours of the best interviews, fully remastered, fully audioed out, insight, commentary from me, my thought process on it. Oh, that's who that is good for.
Yeah. No, and that's one of the things is that I do have audio from Mofucius. I do include unreleased artwork on there. I do include all of the Belial issues and Cerber issues on the USBs and stuff like that. I make it a value. It has to be
How
something people view.
much gig is on that?
These are only 8 gig. But when you go through, when you don't say, "Hey, it's 8 gigs," because people are buying stuff that is super huge. The thing is you go, I can give you 50 hours of audio. I can give you over,
No, because the reason why I asked this is that the other side of this that maybe creators should figure out is somebody buys a USB drive, and then can somebody upload some shit onto from their laptop at a con? Because if
yeah,
all of a sudden I bring, I have obviously I have an external hard drive, but I have other things too. You know, I have a really cool USB key drive. So
hmm,
so it's a USB thing and a key. So it looks
yeah.
like a key, and it's on my keychain. It's awesome. It's like, yo, bro, what's that key to? I'm like, oh yeah, it's just a USB drive. They're like, what the fuck? Like, it's great. It's
I
great.
almost did that for iDrive for Cerber because it was key shaped. Yeah,
And so people are like, yo, dude, where can I get one of those? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. but it's funny. But the point is that I think that's a shift in market, because I think that'd be interesting. Is that if I have a USB drive and I can say to something, yo, dude, you got a USB, you got 10 gigs, $7, I could give you like 7 comics
Yeah.
right off the bat, and I'd be like, oh, this is interesting. Because now you're uploading a lot of shit onto my USB drive, and I can just run through a con with my USB, and I'm a digital reader.
Yeah.
It's easy. I mean, especially if somebody already has a pretty big USB drive. But I digress. I mean, I just think that, again, people aren't creative yet.
Well, that's why even at the conventions, I'll bring one of these that's fully loaded. And if somebody says, well, I don't know, and I'm like, well, do you have your phone? I'll sell you a digital version of the comic book for a quarter of the price. You want a good deal? You can get all my books, and for, $10, give me your phone. I've got this right here. I'll show you, and we'll just upload it to your phone right now, and you can take it with you home right now for nothing. And it's just another avenue. It's that immediate accessibility that helps out.
No, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting, and again, I just think that creators aren't smart, and I don't think they understand how to sell to people, and I think that that's part of the problem. I think that's part of the problem. I like to sell things to people. I like to make a deal happen. I enjoy the art of the deal.
Experimentation. I had some people, when I told them I was making this, they were like, it seems like a good idea, but will it really work? And I'm like, I like it. I have it with me.
Let me ask you this. When you speak to people like that, because I've had a bunch of people say, Andrew, that's a bad idea. Andrew, you're gonna fail. Like, my response is that, why would you even fucking say it?
Yeah.
Like, why would you say I'm going to fail?
Some people view that aspect of what they're saying as looking out for your well-being. Some people, the intention is really good. The delivery sucks, but the intention and the well-being for you is what's at heart. I had some people that are really supportive in what I do tell me it was a bad idea. I still did it anyway, but the delivery of their criticism was a little bit rough, but I understand where they were coming from. You have to look at, who you're talking to, what their intention is. And, that's the way I look at it.
Cause I don't know. I viewed a bunch of people say, oh, Andrew, why would you print 200 copies of a cover you're going to do? I'm like, because it's going to be cheaper. And if I'm right, I'm going to make a lot of money. and the person was like, why are you going to print 200? Because why wouldn't I do that? If I'm right, I'm going to make a lot of money. And also 200 copies of my book is going to run me $800 with cover art.
Yeah.
$800 to make legitly $8,000. I mean, we're talking a $7,200 spread.
Yeah. No, it's a big deal.
Take that risk all day.
For sure. But you got to know what you're investing in. You got to know the artist. You got to know all that stuff that kind of goes into it too.
Oh, I would have made it.
I've had some bum deals, but
I digress.
Man. There's a balance in there somewhere.
I digress. You're going to be fine. I mean, but obviously we spoke a lot about the industry. We spoke about your book. I'm curious where you think comics are going to go. It's my favorite question beyond what we spoke about. Like, what do you see in the next year in comics? Because obviously we got a lot of stuff in the Marvel movie industry going. We got Deadpool 3 coming. Obviously, I was speaking with Darren Davis about that. I mean, I don't know. Are you Team Taylor on that one? You Team Taylor coming?
I think. What is it?
We have Taylor Swift as the Dazzler.
I think she could do it. Like, I'm down. I have the Dazzler comic book. Like, I think it's awesome.
Would you be in support of a Taylor Swift Dazzler?
I would, for sure.
I would be too. It'd be great.
Yeah.
But I think she needs to get a touchdown first. She needs a good coach, though. I don't know if she could find one readily on hand. She's
already got the end zone dancing done.
It's so terrible. So many things. I mean, I have like 20 jokes that are already. Maybe she could have a shocking detective in her corner. Oh my god, I have like a million of these. I have a million. I don't know. Maybe she could be the next, football star's wife on Sports Illustrated.
That's her thing now. She just covers them.
Oh my God. I mean, Brittany Mahomes is on Sports Illustrated.
Yeah. No, but as far as comics in the future, I think indie comics right now, they're having a hard time. But I think as the interest in new stories and with platforms like Netflix and like A24 and different things taking risks on newer type of stories, I think that in the long term, I think there's a lot of opportunities for independent creators and comic books um, to be successful in different mediums, because people are getting tired of the old tropes and the old different storylines. And I think once that interest has been dying down, I think there's other interests that are being picked up, and they're willing to take chances with these platforms.
No, I think it's gonna be interesting. I am excited. And I do think that things are going to get interesting with comics. Um, I don't know. I don't know how far Netflix is going to go, or Peacock, or Hulu, or Disney, with things outside of the norm.
Yeah.
But I do think that things are going to get optioned.
Yeah.
I don't know how many things are going to get made. I do think things are going to get optioned heavily. But an option is just that.
Yeah.
It's just the option to do something.
Well,
And
I was part of an anthology book called Mississippi Zombie, and that was propositioned by Netflix for a series, and that fell through. So yeah, there is a certain element of that.
that's interesting. I'm not going to push you too hard publicly on that, but I am curious on that because I love understanding how that works. But I digress. I do think a lot more options are coming. I do not know if things are going to be made.
Yeah.
Was making something and getting something made. Oh my God, what is it? Something's killing the children. Has
Oh
been
yeah.
optioned by Netflix, and that thing's a disaster, from what I heard.
Really? I don't know anything about it. I know I have the story. It's a good story, but
great story, great story. It's not James Tyrone the Fourth's problem. I mean, it's his problem because if it gets made instantly, he's going to make a lot more money. But the option isn't the issue, right? It's the fact that Netflix is going from director to director, and they're just hitting massive delays with it, which is not a good sign for a television show.
Well, yeah, and it ties it up for in as a work in progress and doesn't allow it to somebody else to come along, which is rough.
And again, it's problematic when you're in a limbo state.
It can kill it. It can kill it entirely.
It can kill it, but he'll get his option money. It's just that it could kill it, but then will Netflix renew the option just to have it in its playbook, which is a whole different issue too. I can tell you who loves his options getting renewed. Scott Snyder likes his options renewed.
Oh, for sure.
The question is that when do those options end and when do they become less valuable? Because they all do.
Right.
That's the real question for a lot of things. And then if you're investing in a lot of those books that have options, when do you get out? That's the other thing too.
Yeah.
But I digress. I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. Where can people bother you, find you, hit you up, disturb you?
Sure. I've got Instinct Comics. That's my website. I am Instinct on TikTok. On Instagram, I am Instinct Comics. And of course, I am Shaun Barbour on Facebook. You can find me any and all of those places. And if you get really inquisitive, I do have a YouTube channel for some of the promo videos and different stuff with iDrive for Cerber. And that is Instinct Comics as well. So that's me.
Yeah, and then I have been saying it. You got to support people who you like. You want to see their projects. You got to go check them out, what they're doing, follow them on social media, back their campaigns, all that fun stuff. And as far as I'm concerned, I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter/X, Pop Anime Comics on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics on Facebook, Pop Anime Comics on YouTube, Pop Anime Comics on TikTok, Pop Anime Comics Collectibles on eBay, because I have this right here. Come shop with us. It is beautiful, my cute little elf, and she'll be very supportive of you. And just so everybody is aware, I have these books. So I have the foil version of this, I have the art version of this, and I have the trade dress of this book. And 2 of those are sold out. So all 5, minus the trade dress, are sold out of that book. And I have the foil and I have 2 of the trade dresses in my store. So again, if you hit me up and offer me 90 and said, hey, I saw your show and I want that book, this beautiful foil right here, I'll hook you up for 90 bucks. More than happy. Otherwise, it will be 100. Same thing with this one. It is a metal and I haven't listed it yet, but it is Jamie Tyndall and that book is sold out as well. And I do carry some cool stuff like this in my store and like this in my store. And apparently I'm having an issue where I am supposed to be carrying this card, but I can't see it. I can't see it. And it's terrible. And I got them, I felt them, and then I called the company up and they're like, yo, we know we shipped it to you and we waited. And I said, I can't see them. And they said, we can't see them either. And then it was just terrible. And it's a problem. So I can't see it. But if you could see it, you can buy it. But I can't see it. And that's what I carry in my store, everybody.
Yeah.
So that's everything that I have going on. But yes, it is a problem. But that's everything about me. Pop Anime Comics. Pretty much type it in. You'll find me. You can bother me. And that's everything I got. But on that note, I will give Shaun the final word.
No, just go out there. Make sure you guys are supporting everything. If you get a chance, go to cerbercomics.com or search for iDrive for Cerber on Kickstarter. I'm happy to have you. I know that we are sitting at 80% funded. And by the time this is done, for just $5, you can get 6 digital comics by the time this is done. So super simple. And I'd just be happy to have you. And I appreciate you guys being here, especially you, Andrew. I mean, this would be really weird if I showed up on your channel and I'm the only one here.
It would be weird, but it would be really cool. It'd be a great show. It'd be a great show. And on that note, I don't think I could have ended any better than we just did. And that is a wrap.